I'm trying to think because there actually was some more stuff before we get into the world stuff. I'm trying to think. Oh, there's actually a couple things we do.
Caedrel retired?
Yeah, there's a few. What do you think of that? I mean, here's the thing. When he says that, guys, like, I don't even know if you should use the word retired for that. What he really means is he's not casting next year of LEC. That's all we really know. The door, as far as I can tell, unless he really fucked off right, should always be open. Like, I'm sure in 2 years, if he comes back, like, yeah, I want to be doing that, I'm sure it's there again. But yeah, apparently he's just going to be core streaming from now on, which makes a lot of sense. If you listen to what he said, like anyone who's done that gig, think about how run down Dom and LS are, and then Caedrel was trying to do LEC as well. And if you don't know, I've always said the reason why for me League of Legends is so much more intensive than other esports games is, like, if I've been to 70 CS lands, Monte, then either 50% of them didn't even have a rehearsal, or there was a rehearsal and it was cancelled, like, the second it was supposed to start. Or, like, no joke, I might have actually done ever in esports, Monty, like 4 rehearsals or something insane like that. If people don't know, LEC is the opposite. Like, even for a random week of LEC, you've got to go in for like production meetings and then like go through your fucking story points and then figure out what you can do with your grab. Essentially, in other games, we're sometimes doing it by the seat of our pants, so it's like a 5-minute discussion. So I imagine it was not only the time he was on camera, but the amount of time extra to his core streaming, which, remember, core streaming involves you wake up early and then you have a 40-minute nap. Like, I totally get why he's doing this, mate. I know some people will be sad he's not on LEC, but to me, I think doing those gigs takes years off your life, mate. It's too much. It's too much of your time.
I mean, I can speak about this because I was on the crazy grind in like 2014 and 2015 when I was coaching CLG, and then also watching all the regions, doing this show, doing 2 best of 3 days of League of Legends every single week. It was insane. And yeah, you don't have time for anything else. And to put Caedrel's schedule into perspective, he would have to be there 3 days a week for LEC, streaming in the morning before he got there, doing all these meetings. He had to come in to do Euphoria, the podcast, live, because they do it from the studio. And he was doing, he was co-streaming like, 3 different or 2 other regions, LCK and LPL primarily, because they didn't give him LCS broadcast co-streaming rights, right? But he was paying attention to it. He was watching it. He was doing variety streaming. And just from a perspective, he probably is making more per month from streaming than he would make in an entire year.
Oh, easy. Yeah, that sounds totally plausible, man. Yeah, it sounds totally plausible.
Maybe 2 weeks, maybe in 2 weeks, he can make as much money as he would in an entire year.
I mean, there's one thing we should probably shade into this discussion, right, Monty, is that it's not as simple as what does Caedrel want to do. Actually, the bigger issue here for me is, at this point, this ties into a bigger discussion we've been having for years about the talent world of specifically League of Legends. The real problem, Monty, is it's always capped. So if you are a Papa Smithy, eventually it gets boring and just do the same gigs. If you are Caedrel, the joke becomes, for Worlds now, you essentially have to take a fucking pay cut just to be on the real broadcast and get the status. But the problem you have, Monty, is if you are a Papa Smithy or a Caedrel and you've done it already, you've already done a bunch of Worlds, the status isn't that big anymore. You want the other things. You want like more opportunity to do other things. Maybe you want more money. Like if you're Caedrel, you make more money doing Worlds on your fucking core stream than you will actually being on the real broadcast. Of course you will. You make loads
It's probably
more.
Not even close either. He probably, because Worlds is so big and because he's going to get some of his biggest viewership during this time period, he would probably have to take something like a 95% pay cut. Like that's not even a joke, or a 90% pay cut in order to do the broadcast, as opposed to and also, obviously he doesn't have to travel, although sometimes it's good to travel just because you get in the right time zone. Like I'm in Korea right now and I will be for a while, just because the time zone's better and I wanted to get out of LA for a bit. So he's also like, I think the other thing with Caedrel is it's not just one of those situations where he's going to do co-streaming, although he might continue to do that in the future. He actually has big enough viewership, and especially because he has big viewership while doing other games, he could probably move into just a general like variety streaming career and be even more successful.
Oh, you mean he could sort of be like a Shroud type figure, you mean?
I think he could just leave esports at this point in time. Like his audience for him playing non-esports games, not League of Legends, is still enormous. And he can continue to build that up. And frankly, that's something that's going to serve him very well for years and years and years in the future. Now, he may want to continue to do League of Legends stuff because he enjoys it, but this makes total sense. And, I think this is one of those things where if I was a caster and I was looking at this, it would still be a pretty bitter pill to swallow because Caedrel has had all these opportunities that other casters haven't been given in terms of co-streaming rights. Like I think it's very frustrating. I would be very frustrated if I was a caster and I wasn't given the opportunities to co-stream these other leagues. And so basically they're imprisoning many of their casters and taking away their ability to potentially become the next Caedrel because they don't want to have their casters escape, which is, really shitty, but that's the position that Riot is putting the talent into.
It's also wild. That's why I said to me, the bigger issue to shade in is the fact that you earn so much less money compared to essentially, like, think about it, Monte, to do the live broadcast of the event. If we make this like a sports comparison, in sports, it wouldn't matter how much you would pay for your co-stream. You want to be on the main broadcast of the Super Bowl or something like that, or the Champions League final, the World Cup. Like, the status alone is like, that's the thing. Like, in years, the money's going to be gone. So the real problem Riot has, in my opinion, is they haven't properly incentivized it. Like, if Caedrel does Worlds now, he's just another guy on the show. Now, here's the reason why he's the best example for me of how they've misincentivized their industry. Because actually, he was the golden boy, guys. Like, they boosted him to the top of their scene immediately. Didn't he do like a Worlds final like 1 year in or something, Monty? He had a very rapid rise to the top. He went
to be
through
fair,
LEC.
he was extremely good.
He was, but here's the thing: there's other people sometimes don't get that. Some people take years. The lag on people like Papa Smithy and for scoring to go Worlds Final was years, mate. They were taking 3-4 years to get there. Also, there's other people where, like, we can tie this into this. Obviously, they announced the talent for Worlds. Trouble Inc isn't even on there. What? By the way, the reason why that's egregious is this. I'm not like other people who are full of shit. You know what I said earlier about how people go, there should be like 100 people are like in a Hall of Fame. It's like, no, take people out. That's people out of it to make it worthwhile. So I'll just say this, right? It's not just that Trouble Inc isn't in. And by the way, even if it was just for those fucking post-draft interviews, I would have hired her. It was obvious she was doing a great job with those. Not only would that have added great flavor to the tournament, but you go and look at some of the names who are on there, Monty. Like, there are some names that are on here where, like, they're like the 5th most known person who does LPL, or they're just like a name you like, oh, I think I've seen him do EU Masters. Like, how do some of these names get on, mate? Like, I've never understood the rhyme or reason. Like, do you actually think behind the scenes it's some sort of like Riot just is like nepotistic, has their own people they like? Are they actually thinking these are the best people? What would your sense be, Monty?
I can't explain it because they routinely, as I have complained about for years and years and years, don't use the right people on the broadcast.
Never do.
I'm glad that Hysterics is finally there at Worlds this year. He's been deserving of it for quite a long time. But
he's never done it before. He's never done one before.
I don't think so. No,
I think you might be right now. You say it. Yeah,
he's been casting for many years, and I think he's good. It's just, they don't accept the LCK or the LPL casters, even though those people are the ones who are going to be knowledgeable about the teams making the deepest runs in the tournament, and they like pre-select their finals lineup, which is just wacky because you would want to see which
they
teams
select
are
the finals lineup before the tournament's even begun.
Usually, yes.
That's bonkers.
Which is why, like, we keep ending up with a bunch of NA casters like on an all Korean world
even
final.
Though we've made this like 100 times, Monty, I'll make the point again very briefly. The issue is this: League of Legends is a very unusual esport. I always say this to Monty. To me, it's alien that if you're the best in the world who speaks English, you don't commentate the best games. Like, what? There's no other esport in the world works that way, guys. Like,
hey man, it's crazy.
Like in Counter-Strike, the reason why the joke is we don't do it like Monty said, but in Counter-Strike, you could pre-select the finals pairing of like casters and analysts because we all watch the top teams. Like, no matter who gets there, we're all experts. But in League of Legends specifically, it is mental. The idea you could actually, especially because every time it's going to be bloody Westerners, you could have your LCS and your LEC guy, and then it might be like the most obscure, like it wouldn't be this time, but like last year's a great example. I bet there's people didn't really know that much about DRX. DRX wasn't on most people's radars. They were like, there was a dark horse doing Make World. So to me, it just feel a bit silly to know that at the same event you have a mega expert on that, but he's just sat watching the games like the rest of us. Like, surely he gets in there somehow, guys. Come on, we've got to switch it up. Come on.
Now, the casters, obviously watch the games that happen at the tournament, but you see the problems manifest when teams like DRX do these Cinderella runs, because there's no way that any of the LEC or LCS casters watched more DRX games than I did or than the LCK casters did last year. And at a certain point, you actually are probably going to need that deep knowledge as they pull out from their bag of tricks that they've been using across games between them and low ranked teams that probably not very many people watched because you're focused on your own region, which is why it's important to have people on the broadcast who know these teams. Now, obviously, play-by-play, much more interchangeable, but even play-by-plays, it's sometimes necessary because you'll know player trends or champion selection at the very least. You'll have a broad base of knowledge to pull from. But this is how Riot loves to do things, and it doesn't matter your skill level. The only thing that matters is your proximity to Berlin or Los Angeles, and otherwise it's very, very difficult to get in.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.